Welcome everyone to our first webinar on study in Germany. This session is about the admission requirements for studying in Germany, and I'm really looking forward to the next hour. My name is Maria. I'm working at the German Academic Exchange Service, DAD, in the headquarters here in Bonn in Germany. The webinar will last 1 hour. There are 30 minutes presentation of our experts, following 30 minutes for your questions. Our experts today are Apoorv Mahendru from the DAD branch office in New Delhi and Peter Kerrigan from the DAD branch office in New York. They will inform us about the requirements to admission in Germany, like higher education, entrance, qualification, language requirements, and application. We will answer your questions after the webinar, after the presentation. Please post your question into the chat window and specify it as good as possible. Already one information in advance, you'll find our webinar session in our YouTube channel after the webinar. If you face any technical issues, please post them in the chat. Our technical advisor will get in touch with you. This as for the technical advice. We now switch live to America and India and say hello to our experts abroad. Peter and Apoorv, would you please switch? Hello,
yes, hello everybody. It's a pleasure being
here. Good morning from New York City.
Hello world, as I like to say.
So, let me say a few words to introduce you to our participants. Apoorv Mahendru was in New Delhi, India, and spent his early years in Hamburg in Germany. He completed his education at the University of Delhi, where he graduated in English literature before completing his master's degree in business administration. Apoorv Mahendru has been associated with the DAD for 15 years and has handled various assignments. He is currently Director of Marketing and Deputy Director of the Regional Office in New Delhi of DAD, which is responsible for the South Asian region. He has authored numerous strategy papers and reports, conducted workshops, and delivered talks related to higher education in Germany. Hello, Apoorv. Peter Kerrigan is the Deputy Director of the German Academic Exchange Services New York office and Director of Marketing and Development for DAAD in North America. He is responsible for all areas of marketing of German higher education and research and the DAAD's scholarship programs in the US and Canada. Amongst others, Peter served as Vice President of Membership Development and Services at the Forum on Education Abroad and Assistant Director of the Higher Education Research Resource Group at the Institute of International Education. Peter was awarded Master of Arts in Political Science by the Freie Universität in Berlin and a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science in Germany and Bates College, Maine, USA. So, I'll now give the floor to Peter. For your information, everyone, the video will switch off during the presentation, so you will not see the presenter, but only the presentation. So, Peter, would you please start the presentation?
Yes, well, good morning again from New York City. And I will give just a general introduction about who we are, who the DAD is, and then the rest of the content thematically. Apoorv will take you on a tour of what we're going to talk about, and then at the end, as Maria has said, there'll be ample time for questions and answers. We will remind you, of course, throughout the course of this presentation to please send in your questions via the chat function, which Maria has mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. So first of all, who are we? Who's organizing this webinar for you? If you're unfamiliar with us, the German Academic Exchange Service, or DAD, is actually a German acronym. In English, it's German Academic Exchange Service. As you can see, Deutsche Akademische Austauschdienst. Our headquarters are in Bonn. We are actually the largest funding organization in the world supporting the international exchange of scholars and students. and we are funded by various ministries in Germany. I think what's really important to note is the quantity, the breadth of our outreach. As you can see, we have over 70 foreign-based branches and information centers. As Maria pointed out, Alporv and I serve in regional offices, but there are information centers in many countries. And in addition to that, there are DAD-funded lecturers or lectors around the world, about 475 of those in probably almost every country on the planet. And I think equally wonderful to point out is the fact as an organization that we annually fund over 75,000 people to go to and from Germany every year. And again, just wait for a quick second so you can sort of see the scope of the work that we do. Our two major mandates, there are many of them, and if you visit our website at daad.de, you can look at them in greater detail. But one is to represent German higher education research around the world, and then in addition to that, not to oversimplify, is of course to present and offer you the wonderful funding opportunities that we have for everyone from the undergraduate level through including senior faculty and research to bring you to and or from Germany for a research, internship, or study stay. And that having been said, I'm going to pass on the mic to Alporv over to Delhi, who's going to walk you through what we're going to cover today. Alporv?
Yes, thanks a lot, Peter. Well, now it's my pleasure to be talking to all of you. I'll take the next 10 or 15 minutes of your time and guide you through some of the points that are mentioned here on this particular slide. We'll be talking about why you should study in Germany in the first place. Of course, we'd like to give you an overview of the German university system and give you some handy hints about life in Germany as a student, about studying in Germany. Thereafter, we'll try and give you a few more information about the qualifications that you require. I could already see some of the questions that all of you are typing into the chat window. You're already asking what the requirements have to be, and we'll be talking about those things in depth. Also, of course, about the language requirements and application procedures and so forth. This was just to give you an overview. I'll be covering more or less half of the content in the next 10 slides, and Peter will be taking over thereafter. First question you ask yourself is why you should study in Germany at all. I hope you've already crossed this barrier and you've already decided that you wish to study in Germany, but there may be some among you who are still contemplating and thinking, you know, why Germany, why maybe not some other place? For those people, I think it's interesting to note and interesting to understand what sets the German system and what sets German education apart from many other countries and the education systems they offer. And I think, as you can read on the slide, I'm not going to describe and explain each and every point in depth, but these definitely are the most important points. And for many people across the globe, I think the fact that university education in Germany brings together practice and theory, that is, I think, among the most important that we have to stress upon. There is a very strong practical focus which is missing in many other education systems around the globe. That's definitely something that sets it apart. Of course, the fact that all studies have a very international focus. And other than that, something which is also of relevance and consequence is the fact that education in Germany is not really considered a business. It's not commercial in that sense. And as such, universities in Germany charge a very, very low, or for that matter, no tuition fees at all. Germany is sometimes alien to many people because you don't associate Germany necessarily with studying abroad. In fact, in the region that I come from, in India, and I think I wouldn't be wrong if I say in many parts of Asia, one would also consider many other places because Germany is a place that seems far removed and alien. But at the same time, if you look at some of these things I've mentioned here, you wake up in the morning, you go and brush your teeth. Yeah, then that's the point of time you have to remember Germany, because the toothpaste was invented in Germany. So it's actually not so removed and not so alien. You watch television, you listen to music on your MP3s and on your mobile phones and devices. Again, the MP3 format is a German invention, which again just tries to, you know, bring across the fact that Germany as a destination, Germany as a country is really so pervasive in your everyday lives that you don't even realize it. You all must be traveling around, whether it's in a Mercedes Benz, I can't say, but definitely in some form of commotion which uses the automobile engine. So these are the things I think that Germany has given the world, that Germany has given you, and these are some of the things that and how Germany basically touches your lives in ways that you don't really imagine. But having said that, I would also like to urge you not to choose Germany as a student, as a place of study, simply because the toothpaste was invented there. That doesn't seem to me to be a very intelligent way of going about choosing Germany. But one thing I can say for sure, why you should choose Germany is because the quality of education in Germany is second to none in the world. This slide here is just meant to give you an idea of how many Nobel laureates the German education system has produced, which just goes to say how good the German education system is basically is, that it's been producing these many people over the years. And it's not just on past glories that German universities are resting. You see that many of these Nobel prizes have been actually given to the concerned people in the very recent past. So Germany definitely a place second to none when it comes to quality of education. Now, Germany is a place is very rich. It's extremely diverse. It has a diversity of institutions. It has a large number of institutions, more than 400 universities and universities of different kinds. If you have ever tried to do some research on German education, on German universities, you must have come across a large number of types of universities, whether the universities of arts, or universities of music, or the so-called Fachhochschulen or universities of applied science. So there's a rich variety of institutions, and it becomes important for us to understand exactly what exactly this means. Why are there so many different types of institutions? Because that goes a long way in deciding which kind of place you want to go to and what kind of course you want to study. Basically, during the next few slides, we'll be sharing with you and just describing to you the different kinds of universities. And since we cannot really cover all of them, we'll be just choosing maybe the main types which a majority of the students look at. But to begin with, just one point I'd like to make is that German universities usually have two intakes, the summer intake and the winter intake. The summer semester usually starts in the month of April and ends in September, and the winter semester starts in October and ends in March. Before I get down to explaining you a little more about the universities, I think it's also important to understand that Germany is extremely international. More than 11% of students on campus Germany are students who hold a foreign passport. This is an extremely high figure. And other than that, Germany is host to more than 260,000 foreign students. And that happens to make it the third placed country in terms of country which accepts and welcomes international students, right after the USA and UK. So it's no mean achievement, and definitely something that not many of you would have known. I had mentioned to you earlier that there are different types of universities, and without really giving too much information about them, I think I'd like to just mention two. Universities, as the name suggests, or Universitäten, as you would read on German university websites, are basically those which give you the option to study all possible subjects at all possible levels. They have a strong fundamental focus as well. On the other hand, you have the so-called universities of applied science, or the Fachschulen as they're called in German. These have a limited number of subjects that they offer. They're smaller and they have a more practical focus as compared to universities. Fachhochschulen are able to provide undergraduate and postgraduate education, but not PhDs. So this, I think, is a fundamental difference you do have to keep in mind when you're looking at German institutions, at German universities. Germany is becoming more and more popular for a lot of international students, of course, because it offers quality education. But something we don't have to forget is that Germany has done a lot to internationalize its universities. And that means that more and more programs are now being developed that cater to an international audience. Now, a part of doing that is to introduce programs in a language that a majority of people from different regions of the globe can follow. That means English. And more than 1,500 degree programs are now offered by German universities. These 1,500 international programs and more are basically conducted with English as the medium of instruction. So no matter what subject you're looking at, whether it is of the engineering sciences, the natural sciences, or the liberal arts, there are numerous subjects that you can now study in Germany with English as the medium of instruction. That has actually made Germany extremely popular with a large number of students who do not necessarily possess the required German language skills to study in Germany. Having said that, we of course need to keep in mind that a majority of the programs offered by universities, I would say more than 8,000 of those programs are offered with German as the medium of instruction. So definitely knowing German will give you a head start. It'll give you a far wider range of programs to choose from. So that would be an intelligent choice, surely, for those who know German to consider programs that are also taught in German. I did mention to you earlier that German universities charge no or low tuition fees. That's because the majority of the German universities are publicly funded and education is a common good. So they do not charge tuition fees, nor from German students, neither from international students. The one thing that those universities do charge is a so-called semester contribution, which is usually to the tune of 200 or 300 euros, somewhere in that range. And that's basically a semester ticket, as one could refer to it, which permits a student to travel on public transport and which gives students, discounts at various places, which is valid throughout the semester. Other than that, there are practically no tuition fees that you have to cover. It's only your personal living expenses that you would definitely have to take care of. We'll do that later. And with this, I think I have already reached the slide where Peter will be taking over from me. Peter?
Yes, thank you, Apoorv, and I'm convinced both the U.S. and German higher education systems. So please keep Germany in mind, and particularly now we're getting down to a little more of the nitty-gritty in terms of what it actually entails to apply to a German university. We're going to do this somewhat systematically. First, for those of you interested in perhaps pursuing a bachelor's degree in Germany and then a master's, and we'll touch on very briefly those of you who are interested in perhaps pursuing a PhD. And again, keep those questions flowing in the chat function. I do want to point out just go back 2 slides. Here, the studyin.de website is a fantastic resource. We'll reiterate these URLs at the end, but I just wanted to point that out again. Okay, so for those of you who are thinking about entertaining the notion of perhaps pursuing a bachelor's degree in Germany, all students outside of Germany must apply, well, that's true for the German students as well, they have to apply to a German university. And this, whether or not you're applying to be a first-year student or a freshman, as we say in the U.S., or a postgraduate or doctoral candidate, there's an admissions procedure which applies to all of you. So firstly, particularly at the bachelor's level, you'll need to demonstrate that you have a secondary leaving, a school leaving certificate, whatever that is called in your country. There's a wonderful German word for that, and you'll see the abbreviation, the HZB or HZB, Hochschulzugangsberechtigung, is that wonderful German word. You will need to achieve that. So as part of the application process, you'll need to demonstrate that. DAD administers a wonderful resource for you, and it's here listed on your slide. It's the DAD admissions database, and that, in essence, can help you to look up your foreign credentials, your school leaving certificate, to see what kind of university entrance qualification is available to you based on these qualifications. So it's organized geographically by country, actually, and that will help you when you're applying for, in this case, the bachelor's examination. So there are different requirements, but also in addition, you'll have to show that you have proof that you have passed a university entrance examination, if that is indeed part of what your university is looking for. And ultimately, I think this is important, that's emboldened on your slide. It really is up to the university to which you're applying to decide about the recognition of your certificates or not. And I'll go into a little greater detail about that in a moment. So also to keep in mind that if your qualifications, based on what you've discovered through the DAD admissions database, or even by dealing directly with the university itself, if your qualifications are deemed not to be sufficient to gain direct admission to a German university at the bachelor's level, you may be asked to take some sort of foundation or a bridge course, which is called, as you can see in the slide in front of you, a Studienkolleg, or it's a gap year in the sense that it prepares you, gives the fundamental tools and skill sets that you'll need on par with your peers when you then are given entrance to the bachelor's program. So again, another URL we're throwing out at you. It's listed in the fourth bullet point on this slide, but if you just Google Studienkolleg, you'll come up with the website, and that will give you some information if indeed you have been advised to take this path to gain entrance to the university. I also want to just point out a second before we go on to the master's program that there are subjects when you're applying for a bachelor's degree, that there are subjects that are restricted, and it's called the central numerus clausus versus no numerus clausus, that some of the degrees for which you're applying have, relatively speaking, open admission. That doesn't degrade the quality of the program, but it means that there are some programs that are restricted by a grading system, and that's called the numerus clausus. You'll see this in some of the literature, or NC system. And these subjects, medicine, pharmacy, veterinary medicine, and dentistry, usually are restricted to the central numerus clausus for a variety of reasons, but one of which is the most obvious: they're very popular. And so really only applicants with the best grade point average, who also fulfill other prerequisites for those programs, are accepted to these courses. So again, keep that in mind. Another website that I will recommend you look at is the Hochschulstart. Have a look at that as well, but I'll come back to that in a moment. So I'll touch briefly on the master's program. You apply for a master's program directly with the university. Oprov recommended a very valuable resource, the International Degree Programs. That's a great resource. Great resource for you if you are applying for a master's. You essentially look at the specific requirements on the website of the university to which you're applying. They will illustrate the necessary documents that you need and give you the application deadlines. Now, keeping in mind, as Afler stated, that the German academic year may not be in sync with your academic year. It's certainly not in sync with the academic years here in the US and Canada. And similarly, and I'll come back to that in a moment later, if you are applying for funding, sometimes the deadlines for the funding schemes are not necessarily in sync with the university deadline, so to keep that in mind. Talking about language proficiency, and Apor talked about the degree programs that are being offered in English. So just to keep in mind that if your degree program is in German, there are some measurements by which the German universities will test your German language proficiency to help you with that. And so if you choose to take a course of study in Germany, you're usually required to prove that you have an adequate knowledge of German. And you can prove this by taking one of two language proficiency tests, and they're illustrated here. The language test, TestDaF, which is a test of German as a foreign language, or The DSH, the Deutsche Sprachprüfung für den Hochschulzugang ausländischer Studienbewerber. There's a mouthful. But DSH, or as the English translation is equally long, says to you. And these are quite useful. And these exams are offered around the world. Again, if you Google testdaf.de, you will find a list of the host institutions where you can take these tests. Now, you would test out of one of these exams, obviously, if you studied abroad and have already taken the test in Germany. If you have an Abitur or a school-leaving exam from a German-speaking school. And then there are some exceptions for those of you who've taken the Deutsche Sprachdiplom, but I won't go into great detail there. Now, obviously, if you're taking a course in English, then you do not need to demonstrate your German language ability. Of course, we always encourage you to learn the language when you're there, even if the language of instruction is in fact English. But again, going back to looking at the individual requirements of the universities to which you're applying, some of them may require some language measurement of your English language proficiency, whether that be an ACT exam or an SAT exam or something of that nature, something to keep in mind. Okay, so now looking at the applications for, and I've touched on this briefly, really I think the most fantastic resource that you could look on in this regard is in fact the Uni Assist. And what is that exactly? The University Assist is a central service that helps international students apply for a place at a German university. And in fact, this website, this organization will help check your documents on behalf of the universities to which you're applying and contact you if anything is missing. So this is a fantastic resource. If your documents are then in fact in order, they will on your behalf place the application to the universities to which you are applying. What's a great advantage of this process is that the Uni Assist can use a set of application documents to apply for a place at several universities on your behalf. But again, we have Hochschulstart, I mentioned, is another resource we encourage you look at. What's great now about the German application system, and this is true for a number of the higher education systems from which are coming, is that most of the online applications are now online, which of course helps those of us who are crossing oceans from Germany itself. But really, at the end of the day, you need to check with the individual university to which you're applying to see if, in fact, their application is all online. They may as well, and this is very important, ask for some sort of supplemental documentation that may not be cited specifically that you can submit online, but will have to be sent either via mail or some other facsimile. And they may, in fact, ask you to look at qualifying exams. We've already mentioned a few of those so far. Particularly, some of you come from educational systems where once completing the equivalent of a high school degree, you do have to take a university qualifying exam, or if you're coming from a bachelor's or master's program, there may be, as part of your university system, some type of leaving exam that you need to take in order to qualify for that particular degree. All of that is spelled out on the websites. I've already talked about the bachelor's degrees with and without admissions or regional admissions restrictions and numerous clauses, so I won't talk about that again. There are a couple of dates here in front of you, one of which is, well, for when the applications are due, depending upon for which semester you are applying. And those dates are in front of you. If you are entertaining the notion of studying in the winter semester, generally speaking, and again, check with the websites, the applications are taken from the first work day in June, whatever that date is, until July 15th. And similarly, if you're looking at the summer semester, generally speaking, the applications will be accepted between the first work day in December, whatever date that is, and January 15th. Now, the master's and PhD programs are slightly different. Again, of course, you would apply during the last year of that degree, the degree that you need to enter the program, whether it be a master's or PhD program, and those deadlines do vary. They're not in sync necessarily with the degree dates the deadline dates that I've just cited. If you're looking at a PhD program, please keep in mind that, I'll finish this a second before I move on, that in mind that there are two parallel PhD programs right now. The first of which is the traditional PhD program, where the PhD candidate really focuses on research and then the dissertation is part of that degree. And then the parallel program, which mirrors a number of educational systems in the world, including this one here in the US and Canada, where you have a more structured PhD program, which not only includes the research and dissertation components, but also warrants that you take classwork and even pass some qualifying exams. So again, when you're looking for a degree, particularly at that level, keep in mind which would apply to you. Some of you also come from educational systems, and again, I'm speaking from the US and Canada, where there are combined master's and PhD programs, or so-called fast-track programs. Those are not necessarily the norm in Germany. There are a few universities that have implemented such schemes, but they are certainly more popular, let's say, on my side of the Atlantic than they are in Germany. But have a look. Traditionally speaking, you would apply for a bachelor's, then a master's, and then a PhD. And keeping in mind that the admissions notifications generally come out in August and September for the appropriate academic year for which you're applying, or semester. And again, those deadlines may not be in sync with what you're used to back in your home countries. Now, of course, the other big question, the two big questions that arise, and then I'll finish that before we move on to Q&A. The first of which is visa, and then the second of which is funding. So I'll tackle the visa question first. What we generally say is please check with your local German embassy or consulate first. Many of you may need a visa depending upon the country from which you are coming or where you hold citizenship, and how long you intend to stay in Germany. That varies, again, according to the passport that you hold. So what I would recommend is that you really look at the websites or contact directly the German embassy or the local German consulates in your respective countries. Generally speaking, we've listed for you what we need for the visa application, or what you will need, and that's a passport, some sort of proof of admissions from the university where you hope to be hosted for the next couple of years. That may not be the case for all of your applications. You may have to demonstrate that you're financially viable, and also confirm that you'll have health insurance coverage. There is a visa application. There might be a fee involved as well, and like for everything you'll need 2 passport photos, but they may be specific requirements in terms of what that photo will look like. So again, look very, very closely at the recommendations of your German embassy or consulate. Just very quickly, living expenses in Germany, and of course, cost of living is a question for all of us. I live in one of the most expensive cities in the world, so believe me, I understand that. But what does it mean to live as a student in Germany when your funds might be limited and your access to funds may be limited as well? This is really just a generalization, because the reality is, and much like in the countries where you are, that there are cities that tend to be more expensive than others. So this is just an overall idea, just keeping in mind that you'll need almost just shy of 700 euros on a monthly basis, but that will vary whether you're in Munich or you're in Halle or you're in Cologne. So just to keep that in mind. And I'm following your fantastic questions that are coming through, and a lot of you, much not to my surprise, of course, are talking about scholarships, because that's, of course, a big issue and a big point for most students when they're applying for a degree, whatever that is. And we, as I mentioned at the beginning, GAD offers really a plethora of funding opportunities, and I really advise you to have a look at first at our home site, daad.de, which is housed in our headquarters in Bonn. But to look there to see, and again, they're ordered geographically in terms of what funding opportunities are available for you coming from the countries where you are now living and or studying. There are also a variety of other resources that you could look at in terms of foundations, and we have a very brief list of those here for you to look at, whether they be foundations, politically or business affiliated. In fact, some of the German federal states might offer funding that you should look at. There are a variety of entities, whether they be churches or social institutions, that may be able to support you on some level. And by all means, if research is really the major focus of what you want to do, there is ample funding as far as research is concerned. Great resource there is the Research in Germany website if you Google that. And there may in fact be student organizations that are on your page helping you. But last and certainly not least, really one of the strongest resources you can look at is the URL at the bottom, and that's the funding-guide.de. Have a look at that website as well. And having said that, I think we're going to now move on to the next slide. Here are some URLs. Again, I mentioned study.in.de. Don't forget us, DAD, in all areas of social media. And of course, Facebook is the most popular, Twitter, etc. And many of our offices around the world have regional specific representation in these areas of social media as well. And I'm going to turn the mic back over to our moderator, Maria. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yes. So, thank you for your presentation, Peter and Apoorv. We got many questions by our users, and I'd like to start the discussion now. So, everyone, can you please switch on your video? I can see me. Already one information in advance, as there are so many questions, I'm afraid we won't be able to answer them all. So in case we cannot answer your question here, just get in touch with us on Facebook or on other social media channels or via our contact form on StudyIn. So our first question from Nesreen. Can I apply for the winter semester knowing that I finish my German course on September? Who wants to answer this question? Can you hear me?
I would say, we both answered. My first recommendation would be to look at the universities to which you want to apply and contact them directly. And see, Apoorv, I don't know if you wanted to add to that.
I was just saying about the same as you did just now. The time seems to be very short. You would have to individually ask the universities. There's no general rule to this. Many universities are open to accepting applications and then asking for remaining documents later on. But this is something that you have to clarify with the university of your choice.
Okay, thank you. Then there are several more questions about application. Volodymyr had several questions of the diploma. So the question was, can you send the documents postally or online? This is the first question. So yeah. Can I send my documents via post way?
From what I understand, I didn't hear you very properly for the last few seconds. I think now that we've switched on our cameras, the sound is coming with a little delay. But the question was about sending the application to the university, whether by post or online. From what I believe, most universities usually prefer you to fill up their online forms, but definitely copies which are authenticated have to be sent in later by post, definitely.
Okay.
And again, I would recommend that, as we said with the earlier question, that you really look at the specific requirements of the university, because they may, I doubt they would accept a fax, for example, or even a scanned email attachment, but there may be some exceptions. But again, we'd rather you deal directly with the university.
Okay, thank you. Then there were several questions about this verification of the documents. Who is allowed to verify the documents, the translated documents?
Well, I'd like to answer this question maybe. The documents have to be verified. There are numerous options that you have. It may be different in different countries, so I cannot speak for all of them, but in India, for example, documents can be authorized by your university where you completed your, let's say if you're going for a master's degree, so the university where you obtained your bachelor's degree, they can verify the documents. Of course, all German missions, whether they're consulates or whether they're embassies, they definitely have the possibility of doing so. So if in doubt, I would suggest it's the best maybe to contact your consulate or embassy in your country.
Okay, anything to add, or is that fine?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Then there are questions, general questions about the admission requirements. There's an interesting one from Ira. I have a question regarding requirements. Are they all equal, or some of them are more important? For example, nation is valued higher than language grade.
Well, I think again, we would refer you back to the individual program to which you're applying in the university. And certainly the academic record is quite important. I think this is across the board, whether you're applying for the university or for funding to go to the university, your academic standing is quite important. Motivation to me would translate into your statement of purpose. And if that's something that's required for the university application, where you do have to demonstrate why you're applying to them, that of course is taken into consideration, why this program is valid to you and what it means to you. But firstly, the university will of course look at your academic and or research record, whatever, they'll clearly spell out what their requirements are, and where the cutoff is in terms of what your past academic performance is. So it's hard to generalize in that sense. I don't know, Apoorv, do you have anything to add?
No, I think, Peter, what you said is just fine. I agree completely.
Okay. And then I'm just going to add sort of an addendum to that, as I mentioned, because I know that funding has come up in the stream of chat questions, that, as I mentioned, those two components are very important, that when you actually get to the point, particularly applying for funding through us as an example, the motivation, as you called it, or the statement of purpose, which we would call it, is really very important to strengthen your application.
Okay.
Maybe I'd just like
Thank
to add
you.
one
Then
thing to this, what Peter just mentioned, absolutely correct. I think it plays an important role, especially where you see that the grades are very similar, because we have situations where there's so many candidates and all of them really have that similar kind of caliber, and then you have to go one step further and see, what differentiates them now. And it's at that step that things such as these, co-curricular, extracurricular achievements that you may have had actually come into play. So from that perspective, certainly, it's worthwhile sending in anything that you deem somehow sets you apart from your competition.
okay. Thank you. There's a really interesting question just in. Would you recommend to send additional documents which are not directly required by the university? For example, contest certificates, professional education courses certificates.
Well, it sounds like if you're applying for an academic program, then any type of certificate that strengthens your academic record would be valid as part of that application. The university may not explicitly say, please send in a qualification or certificate that you've achieved, but I would guess that if it's relevant to the field of study and what you've done, then by all means it could only strengthen your application.
Absolutely true what Peter says. Taking it one step further, though, I have also experienced and seen that candidates many a times send in all kinds of certificates that are not directly related to what they're going to do. So something that you may have achieved in class 2 or class 3 might not really add that much value. So you would have to use your discretion and see, which certificates are really called for. So I leave it to your judgment.
Yeah, I think the important words that you said are directly related.
Okay. Thank you. Then there are two other questions about general admission requirements. Sorry, I have to say something. There's someone spamming in the chat window. Please do stop that. This is really not nice. Okay, thank you. So there's some more questions about admission requirements. Are there entrance examinations in at German universities?
Well, if I can start by answering this question, what I've come across, usually German universities make selections based on paper applications that they receive. Of late, though, we have also come across numerous universities who do conduct some kind of screening tests. These tests may be administered online. These tests may even be administered in your home countries at selected test centers. The DAAD is, in fact, offers this service to universities whereby we, so to say, assist them in conducting admission tests or some kind of screening tests for certain programs that are very much in demand and which have a large number of applicants from a particular country. So it's gaining momentum is what I would say, but the general rule is, of course, that most of them still follow paper applications.
Okay.
And again, we'll refer you back to the websites of the individual programs.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So another question about admission. What is the minimum requirement of CGPA, GRE, and language certificates to get admission in master's program, in this case of civil engineering in German universities? And is publication playing an important role to get admission in master's program?
Well, yes, Apoorv?
Please continue, Peter. It's okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's a very valid question, and I wish I could give you a general answer, but I cannot. As far as the GREs or relevant exams that are used, for example, in the U.S. as measurements for entrance to graduate study, just as they would here, they would in Germany, they would really vary from university to university in terms of what their minimum requirements are. And so, again, we'd have to ask you first to look at the programs that interest you and then look at their requirements to see what the minimum requirements are. If they do, in fact, require that type of entrance exam, particularly for the programs that are offered in English. And so in that sense, I would recommend you look at the websites. And similarly, when it comes to research requirements, going back to what Apoorv was saying about being directly related, if there has been a research component to your academic career or even professional career that you think is relevant to the program to which you are applying, by all means, that should be cited as part of your application. If it's not considered, if they don't require it, some of the universities, in your case it's civil engineering, may or may not require demonstration or proof of prior research experience. That varies from program to program.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm switching to language proficiency questions. There's a question from Salman. He's asking, what should I do if Goethe isn't holding TestDAF and DSH exam? There is no way to appear these exams from Bangladesh. And before switching, forwarding the questions to our experts, it's important to know that DSH cannot be taken abroad. DSH can only be taken at a German university. So there's only TestDAF and Goethe which can be done abroad. So now I'm forwarding the question, where can I do a German certificate examination?
Since the question is from Bangladesh, that falls under the DAD New Delhi office. The India office takes care of Bangladesh, so I'd like to answer the question. As Maria rightly said, the DSH can be taken only in Germany. TestDAF centers, there are, I think, more than 400 TestDAF centers around the globe. Unfortunately, if you mention that there is none in Bangladesh, it's quite likely, in which case the best possible alternative for you would be to do a course at the maximum, at the Goethe Institute itself. If you study up to a certain level, I think it's the C1 level of the Goethe Institute, having, you know, once you have that qualification in place, then the test staff would no longer be required. There are different ways in which you can prove your German proficiency, and a C1 level at a Goethe Institute would suffice in that case.
Okay, thank you. There's another interesting question about language from Anas. The bachelor I'm applying for is taught entirely in English. Do I still need to prove proficiency in German when I apply for student visa? Can this be answered in general? Or?
Yeah, I'd just like to begin, Peter, if you don't mind.
Of course.
Yes, there are two things. Sometimes German universities do insist that you have some basic knowledge of German for bachelor's programs, even though they may be taught in English. But more importantly, in certain countries, and I know that for sure, in India, for example, you do require some basic knowledge. Hello?
Yeah? Do you hear us?
Yes.
Sorry, I'd lost you for a minute. My screen had gone blank. I'm back again. Sorry, even though you're studying in English, you may have to. I think even if you don't have to, prove your German proficiency, it's definitely going to be useful. I mean, you may not need it for your subject, for studying your subject, but to somehow make friends with people, to just do the daily tasks and routines that you have to. For that purpose, I guess it's more important to know German. And as far as applying for a visa is concerned, usually if the courses are in English, then knowing Germany is not always a prerequisite, but it may differ from country to country. So again, as Peter had mentioned earlier, these are things that you have to confirm locally. Since we are having a global webinar right now, what I say holds true for one country may not necessarily hold true for the other. But generally speaking, yeah, if it's in English, then German knowledge is not usually asked for as a criterion. But it is handy and useful for sure.
Okay. As we are with proficiency still, there's a question about Studienkolleg from NBA Man. What is the minimum level of German to study in a Studienkolleg? Can that be achieved in Germany nonetheless? Do you know that?
Well,
anyone?
All I can say basically, yeah, maybe just one thing. A Studienkolleg, or a bridging course as we call it, is basically a one-year course that prepares you to give an exam called Feststellungsprüfung. If you're able to successfully pass that Feststellungsprüfung, you become eligible for admission in a bachelor's program at a German university. This test is required many a case by students from other countries who do not have a German school leaving certificate, or whose local school leaving certificates do not correspond to the same level as the German school leaving certificate, the Abitur. In those cases, students are required to take a Studienkolleg, and the Studienkollegs are conducted in German medium. This means, depending on what subject field you're from or what subjects you wish to study, you would basically have to do 1 year of study in German medium. Now, given that, of course, your German proficiency would have to be high enough to be able to correspond and understand all the lectures that are delivered. So there may be a minimum cut, but you have to really know German relatively well to be able to follow the Studienkolleg and to be able to pass the Feststellungsprüfung.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yeah, just maybe to add this, if you're referring to a certain level, then we can say that it should be B1 according to the European framework of languages. Maybe this is help. Okay, there are 5 minutes left. I have to say I'm really sorry we will not be able to answer all the questions. Thank you for asking so many questions. Yeah, it's just so many, we will not be able to answer them all, but we're giving our best, trying our best, and there's still 5 minutes left. There was an interesting question. There are some questions about. Does DAD also offer scholarships for study programs in Germany done in English language? A question by Orkan.
Yes, is I guess the short answer. As long as when you're applying for the funding, that you demonstrate in your application that the language of instruction is in English, and that the host, whether it be a university or research institution, does not require that you have a basic level of German as well. So as long as the program is in English, that should not be an issue. But again, look at the specific requirements for the program to which you want to apply. It's not going to hurt your chances for funding because, as we mentioned, over 1,500 degree programs being offered in English. And so certainly that's not an issue.
Okay. Anything to add, Apoorv, or is that fine?
It's fine, thank you.
Okay. There's an interesting question from Andrea. She wrote, I have already applied for the DAD scholarship and I have received an answer, but I'm not very sure what it means. They wrote me that I am pleased to able to advise you that the selection committee of the DAD has recommended for the scholarship. Does this mean that I get the scholarship or that will be another step in selecting candidates? Anyone can.
Well, my guess would be based on what you've just cited, it sounds like the student did in fact receive the scholarship, but I would say the student should contact the relevant office for that to which he applied just to confirm that. I mean, we may have different wording in our applications. Apoorv, is that the wording that you would use in your application when sending out the results of the application process? So I think Maria, the best advice is for the student. It looks positive, but I don't want to commit to that answer. But the student should definitely contact the office as well.
Yes, I think that's always a good idea. If you have any questions regarding anything, just contact the person in charge.
Okay.
Yeah. Just 2 questions I will forward. There was one question about part-time, also from Andrea. Does the German government allow students to take part-time jobs?
I'd like to answer that. Sorry, I'd lost contact for a little time, but I'm back again. Part-time work, definitely yes. Working part-time is in fact encouraged. It's possible for you as a student to work part-time. It's 120 half days that you're permitted. 120 full days or 240 half days that you're permitted to work part-time as a student. So it's not just earning a pocket money that that you can do by working part-time, but I think it's also a very enriching experience for many foreign students to really learn a lot, to interact a lot with people and gain culturally and socially as well. So it's definitely something that has been opened up, and as I said earlier, it was a far less number of days that you could work, and it has now been increased to 120 full or 240 half days.
Okay, thank you. Anything to add, or is it fine?
That's great.
Good. The final question from Paul Castro Johansson. I'm a student of a master in acoustic engineer. I would like to study some courses in Germany. What are the applications to do that? I would like to answer that question already. for everyone, if you have questions regarding studying in Germany, how to apply for studying in Germany, I highly recommend you to go to our main website of DAAD and to look for the information for foreigners. And there we have our 10 steps to studying in Germany, which is a really, really helpful guideline and which should actually answer all your questions regarding studying in Germany. So official time is over. Information at the end. You will find the webinar session as a recording on YouTube next week. Just stay in touch with us on StudyIn or on Facebook to get the news. If you still have questions, and I know you still have questions as I see our very full chat window, feel free to get in touch with us via Facebook, via other social media channels, also through the, as we said at the beginning, there are 70 regional offices all over the world, and many of them are on Facebook or on other social media channels to get in touch with us. So I would like to say thank you to you, Apoorv and Peter, for your presentation and for answering all the questions.
Pleasure, thank you.
I hope.
Thank you.
Pleasure for me too. Thanks also to you, dear participants, for all your questions. I hope this webinar was beneficial for you and for your preparations to study in Germany. We wish you many success for your way to Germany. We hope to see you all very soon in Germany. And if you have questions, as I said, get in touch with us. Everyone of the DAAD network is really eager to help you. So, have a nice day, everyone, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.